Okay, let's try this again. So, I actually just recorded 20 minutes of this exact topic, and I didn't realize that I had dual audio sources recording. And I went to play back the video uh, to see if there was any little sections I just wanted to cut out, shorten the video, and I heard this echo, and I wanted to hit myself. So I'm recording it again. So hello again, everyone. So um, I have a baby boy now. He is 17 days old, and he's right over here in the crib. You could probably see him laying down there. So our current situation is that my wife and I are not in our apartment right now. We're staying for a month at her family's home in Taoyuan, and I have a temporary computer setup right now, so it's not my home desktop setup. I've got my laptop here and a spare monitor for a dual screen setup that'll become relevant later, because this is about some troubleshooting that I'm doing in the software. I'm having some issues, but I'm giving a little backstory. So the later half of this video is for Blender users in the forums that might be able to help me troubleshoot, and the beginning half of this video is just a little bit about what I'm doing recently. So, a little introduction, and I haven't posted a video in a while, so might as well do a little intro into it and tell you what I'm doing. So, to make use of my time as best that I could, what I have the opportunity to do right now is work on this project that I formulated a little while back, and so what I'm working on is a game to help people with language acquisition, and I'm going to do it in stages. It'll be focused on one specific language to one specific language in the beginning, but the goal is to, once it's completed, then just kind of reiterate it, do the translation so it could be helpful for another target language. But anyway, so it's a 2D RPG. I don't want to compromise on gameplay, entertainment value. I really want to make it enjoyable, even if you didn't want to use it for language acquisition, but I want it to be a very good tool for language acquisition as well. So I've been working on a lot of different aspects of the project. There's obviously there's like scripting and coding involved, although I can get by with doing less of it if I wanted to, and just rely on stuff that the game engine provides. But if I want to go above and get some additional functionality, I'm going to need to do some scripting to get things that aren't available readily in the game engine by default. So there's that. There's 2D imaging to be done, sprite work. A lot of graphics need to be created. There's the story aspect, and the just the game mechanics. And there's sounds and music that needs to be created. There's a whole bunch of stuff that goes into it. And as far as the images go, because I need to create images for characters, images for scenery, images for objects, I figured I could expedite the process a bit if I used Blender, which If you don't know, Blender is a 3D modeling software that also is used for animation, rendering. You could rig models with armature and pose them, animate them, set up scenes. You could do a whole movie with it. So I've used Blender in the past, but in a very limited scope. I've used it for 3D modeling, and then I would print the 3D models. It wasn't the only software I used for that purpose, but sometimes it was the go-to modeler. Other times I would use a more mechanical-based modeler, drafting software to create the part. It depends what kind of object I was creating. But anyway, I digress. Yeah, so I've been spending a lot of time learning new aspects of Blender that I haven't used before, and it's been nice because I could, with the setup now, I could be right next to the baby, and whenever the baby needs attention, I'm right here, but I'm not far from the workstation, so I could really make good use of my time. And I've been getting pretty far in Blender. Actually, let me just open it up. 4.1, using version 4.1 right now, which again, that's just more relevant for the help threads that I'm going to post this to. So things like walking sprites, where in the game engine it references a single image, and in that single image there will be multiple little frames in it with a character facing different directions, and it uses that to make a little walking animation, things like that. Or there are other animations that work in the same way. So I figured what I'd do is model characters and then set up cameras. I'll show you how I did it. Let's turn off the bone text here. Oh. Turn off text info. So, see, I've got this character in the middle of the screen here, and what I did was set up 4 cameras around it so I could quickly switch between those camera views and do the renders and dump them into a folder and then put them into a single image. It works pretty well. I'm still fine-tuning it, but this process is definitely going to help me speed things up. But recently I've run into an issue that I really want to figure out how to solve, because it's kind of slowing down my workflow, and I just can't figure out why it is the way that it is, and so I'll explain that now. So, first things first, in the forums, I've gone to a lot of different forums, read a lot of different threads, and the most common thing that I see in response to this issue that I have is that the mesh is not parented to the armature or the bones. And the issue that I'm having is, that I'm trying to solve, is when I'm in weight paint mode, I can't tell without looking at the drop down menu up here. It's very difficult to tell which bone is selected, and I don't like the fact that it seems that the only way to select a bone is to use this menu here. It's not a very efficient way of selecting bones, and it's not a very efficient way of knowing which bone is selected. Now, in pose mode, the bones do get highlighted. In weight paint mode, they do not. And the most common issue that I've found that people had was that their mesh wasn't parented. So at first it seems like we have a similar issue or the same issue, but then it's not, because actually my armature is parented to the mesh. I could go into pose mode, which I'll do in a second. Let me just show you that my weight painting does work. I could select a bone. The problem is it's very arduous to it's not an efficient way to work in this mode, because it's difficult to tell which bone is selected. If I didn't have any weight paint here, you wouldn't have any idea which bone is selected right now. And even still, like this, I could put weight paint on the arm. I'll put some weight paint on the arm. It's going to be a little laggy because I'm running OBS Studio right now and Blender, and I'm on a 8 or 9 year old laptop right now, so my laptop is struggling a little bit. Let me set the weight to 100. So, I mean, this is going to be obvious for the experienced users, but let me just demonstrate anyway for anybody else that might be watching. So, just because you have a bone, like let's say one of those central bones, just because that one's selected doesn't mean that you can't weight paint a different part of the body. So now if I apply weight paint to the arms, if you didn't look at the drop down menu up here that says bone, which is bone, I mean, you could easily forget which bone is what bone. Like, even if you really intricately name your bones, that gets very tedious. You don't want to have to rely on the text info, especially if you start to have a complicated armature. Then you just got text all over the screen. You're gonna go cross-eyed. So that's really not the way I want to work. I want to be able to see the selected bone highlighted, because in this way you can't rely on the weight paint to show you which bone is selected, because first of all, if you're working with empty vertex groups from the beginning, you're doing everything manually, there is no weight paint, so I think you get the main idea here. So in 4.1, it seems like the only method for selecting bones is to use this vertex group drop down menu, which I really, really don't like. It seems that people have solutions for 4.0 and up, but every time I try to find those options, they're not present in 4.1. So I'll give you some examples. So first of all, they say all of the automatic responses are you should be able to control click or shift click. I've done every combination to try to select a bone, and it doesn't work. And again, it's a different issue. It's not like I can't select a bone. A bone is selected, but it's not. Issue number one, it's not highlighted. The other issue is that I can't click with the mouse. Two separate issues. So what most of the forums usually point people to is that their armature is not parented to the mesh. So I'll show you that right now. My armature actually is parented to the mesh. There are some things that got a little messed up. Let's put some clothing back on her, even though she doesn't have her little bits detailed. But we'll put that back on, and we'll select the armature. So, selecting the armature, going to pose mode. Now, originally I didn't have any bones in the hands, because the first test that I was doing, the first model, I was creating a walking sprite, and I didn't need to pose the hands. And then I went back and added them as an add-on because I realized that I needed to do a different sprite sheet that needed hand manipulation. So when I did that and added the weight values on again, it messed up some things. I got to go back and fix it. But and this model is not going to be the final one. This is kind of just the working model. So it doesn't really matter anyway. This is just an example. But I'll show you that I could pose it. So let's get a bone selected here. Now you see in pose mode, you get the highlighting of the bones, which is what I want in weight paint mode. Clearly, if there's a global setting to highlight bones, it's on, because they highlight here. I don't know why they wouldn't highlight in weight paint mode. That just doesn't make any sense to me. So we'll just go like this. We'll turn mirroring off and just pose the one arm. And that's the you see it's stretching the skin on the other hand because of what I just said about the weight paints getting messed up. When I added in the bones, I need to go back and fix the weight values on that. But I could pose it. Okay, the armature is parented to the mesh, and it's also parented to the clothing. The clothing, at least the last time I was doing posing before I added in the hands, the clothing deformed nicely with the body along with the armature. So my issue is not that the bones are not parented. It's not that I can't pose. So let's undo that. One form I'll show you. We'll go back to object mode. One apparent solution was that if I go to preferences, I should be able to go to key map, scroll down to 3D view, scroll down to weight paint options, global, weight paint global, but then once here I could not find an option to either select bones with any hotkey or control, or to toggle on or off bone highlighting. We've got weight paint options. That's for anybody that well, you could probably figure out what that is for. The experts already know these are for the command of applying the weight paint. You know, here's for setting the weight. Context toggle. I don't know what some of these even are, but the only options that I see that could apply to the bone situation is, well, select. Okay, so it is a select issue. Under select, I don't see anything that would change the fact that bones are not being selected. There's nothing about what kind of object to select. Same thing under select toggle, and there's another select option, another weights option, There's Vertex Group locks, and that's it. So I don't know what option under here would turn on bone selection or vertex group selection or vertex group highlighting. So I don't know if that was only in 4.0 and previous versions and it's not in 4.1 anymore. A lot of the quick responses say that something should work, but then it's just, and they say it applies to 4.0 and up, but then it's not here, so I'm really confused. Another forum said that in weight paint mode, I'll go back to weight paint mode. In weight paint mode, where I've got my cursor up here next to the masking options, there's select by face, select by vertex. I saw that in some versions there was an icon for bone selection, but that apparently is just not a thing in 4.1, so I can't use that. A lot of the solutions said make sure you have bone selection toggled on and not mask painting, but I don't even have that option. I don't have mask painting on paint mask. It just seems like the only option for bone selection is this drop down menu, which I hate. And yeah, so I'm really stumped. I've been looking all over for a solution to this. I've even done the things that I was pretty sure didn't apply to my situation. Like make sure you select the armature and then shift click your mesh and then go into weight paint mode. But I'm pretty sure those are only solutions for maybe people that don't have their parenting set up, or I don't know, but I'm trying everything that I can and I don't seem to be able to find a solution. So if you can give me some insight or some help, I would greatly appreciate it, because I was cruising along with my progress and then I hit an iceberg, and now I would say I'm pulling my hair out, but I don't have any hair to pull out, so I got plenty of nose hairs, so I could start pulling those out. So thank you to anybody who's watching this or reading the thread and trying to give me some advice or help. Thank you so much, and see ya.